It's going to be exciting KSR rapid reaction here at Rupp Arena after Kentucky just swept Tennessee in the 2-game series in the regular season. But we got Grandpa Joe, Chris Livingston's grandfather, walking by. We had to start with him.
Go
so everybody
Cats.
give him a wave. Chris had a huge game
Go
today.
Cats.
You got to go Cats.
Enjoyed the game.
Big game from your grandson. He's going to be a big talking point right
so
now.
much.
As
We hope better things are to come.
of course,
Yes, sir.
of course.
All
Y'all go celebrate with him. So I had the belt too. First time wearing that.
He had 2 games.
Oh, 2 games. Yeah, he's on a hot streak.
Impact player, yes.
Well, congratulations to you all and Chris especially.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rapid reaction.
So there we go. We got a rapid reaction
Our best
fan there
endorsement.
who also has a very famous grandson on the team right now. After Livingston was the MVP, as we mentioned, he just walked by with his most impactful belt. Drew Franklin here wearing just a regular belt with Jack Pilgrim and Zach Gagan.
No belt over here.
Since Grandpa Joe let off with it and it's here, we're excited. Jack, let's just start bragging on Chris Livingston right away if the Cats got it done.
The easiest thing to brag about, Chris Livingston, unbelievable performance. We've been waiting for, these stacking solid performances on top of one another. We have known that it's coming. We have seen the potential from day one. It's just been about finding what position is he, what role is he, how many minutes does he need to play with, who does he need to be on the floor with, and now we're kind of just starting to see all of that pieced together in one just beautiful performance. He really put together a strong, what was the stat line? 12 points, 10 rebounds, his first double-double as a Kentucky Wildcat. Struggled at the free throw line in the second half, but just really hard to complain about anything that he did. Just really kind of changed the game with the tenacity that he brought, really attacked the glass, and just that is the vision for Chris Livingston. And John Calipari hyped him up after the game, and it was kind of funny seeing Rick Barnes kind of complain and be like, I don't know what John Calipari was thinking to start the season.
Neither were we.
This is a 12-10 kid. Why has he not been playing like this all season? So great performance for Chris, and definitely changed the dynamic of the performance.
If I can step in on Livingston too, he took a rebound away from Oscar. Chris talked about it in the postgame. He said, well, Oscar's taken 10 away from him, so it was kind of, he had to get him back on that one. And what I was about to say about Chris, 3 for 7 from the free throw line was the only bad thing we can say about him. But this kid is it's his hustle now. Like, he's just buying in. I don't think I've seen anyone on Kentucky's team play as hard as he has over the last 2 or 3 games. He runs through screens, over screens. He's not getting blocked or screened too hard, knocked down to the floor. So he's just fighting out there. And I think that's really what's been the difference for him to stack these games, as Jack has been saying.
And John Calipari compared him to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, so that he had, too much outside noise going. He was listening to the clutter, if you will, and said that he's just so obsessive about being great. And it's okay. Like, look, when you are a top 10 recruit, McDonald's All-American, you have all the accolades, dominated at Oak Hill, a prestigious high school. When you're that player coming in and you're not living up to those expectations and your own personal hype, of course you're going to get discontent. Of course those frustrations are going to pile up. So to see him kind of break through mentally, just beyond just the physical performance that we're seeing out of him, that is just incredible. He's really embraced just the role that he's playing and who he is as a basketball player. And this is the Chris Livingston that Kentucky needs to make any semblance of a run in March Madness.
Livingston up to his standards.
Love it.
Oh, look at that. That's like the title for this.
That was a little rough, I felt like. But
well, Livingston was obviously the star. We could talk about him the whole game. Star so bright. Grandpa left his sunglasses on indoors, almost borrowed them from him to talk about Chris there.
His cross necklace almost blinded me, honestly.
Necklace so bright, all of his dates be blind dates. Jack, this was a great date for Kentucky basketball. We talk about every game, literally every game. Bad start, down at the half. Turn around second half when it goes well, but it's almost always a bad start. But in this game, Reeves hits the first points of the game with a 3 in the corner. From there, Kentucky never trailed again. They led for 38 minutes, got up by as many as 20. Second half, Tennessee did kind of come back, but they'd built such an insurmountable lead earlier. It was never really in jeopardy. Just what about that start, especially with Wallace and the guys getting going right away, being another thin backcourt?
That was my biggest gripe going into the game in Athens at Georgia. You heard Jacob Toppin and Antonio Reeves both complain about, or I guess not complain, but say, we know that Georgia's going to throw the first punch. We beat them the first time around. They're going to want to kind of throw that first haymaker, and we need to know how to respond. And my biggest complaint after that was, why are we not throwing that first punch? You beat them the first time around. Continue that dominance, impose your will on them, and run them out of their own gym. Like, why are we not the ones initiating that stuff? So for this almost exact same scenario, you beat them on their home turf the first time around. They obviously were going to come in looking to make a statement, and I love the fact that Kentucky jumps out to an early lead. They kind of pushed their foot on the gas, lead by 20 going into the half. Obviously, they were going to make a comeback, and Rick Barnes said that they were going to make Kentucky make shots in the second half. Kind of stalled out a little bit. Santiago Vescovi gets hot in the second half, as always. There's always one guy that goes crazy at Rupp Arena. So for them to hold that off, they take the early lead, they hold off the comeback effort, and just kind of hold that line there to close out the game. You love that response. It's something that Kentucky's really struggled with this season. So for them to continue that mentality and live up to those expectations that we have for them, much needed and a must-win game for the Cats.
Zach, one of my bigger concerns was really Tennessee's big man Plavsic and how he's kind of, against Oscar, used that length. He seems to hate Kentucky. Like at the game in Knoxville, I was down there after every play. Let me just throw an elbow at someone. I mean, he was very physical in that game. I expected him to be a threat today in Lexington. He really didn't play that many minutes, had, a couple points, but wasn't a threat at all. Oscar didn't get a double-double, but still played pretty well inside against Tennessee's front court.
Yeah, it even seemed like when the Euros, I don't want to.
Euros, Plavsic, I don't know.
We
don't like him.
Even when he was in, he felt like he was doing good things for Tennessee and going right at, Oscar, whoever was guarding him, and they were getting productive points out of it, but he just didn't play too much. There was even a point where the second Oscar came off the bench, Euros was coming in. So that was clear that was Rick Barnes's, that was his game plan, was to battle it that way, but it really, it only worked for so much, and I don't think he played more than 15 minutes. But, yeah.
Yeah, Ware came in and helped. I saw Collins a little thin in that matchup, I think. How about, and it's out of necessity, so I'm not making fun of that they had to do it, but what was that lineup we saw of Adu?
The four in, one out.
I think it was Adu Thiero, Chris Livingston, Jacob Toppin, Damian Collins, and Lance Ware.
Or was it Lance and Oscar?
No, at one point Oscar wasn't in because I thought there's no way these five have played together. And, they had to, being so thin at guard. Wallace and Reeves had to take a breather. But that was the first time we've seen the 5-forward lineup from Cal. What'd you think of that?
And guess what? Cal has no reason, to not do it ever again because it was a successful lineup. So that's definitely a good sign. I like the fact that, so I remember going into the first matchup against Tennessee, that was kind of when everybody was teasing the assistant coaches and the coaching staff about, scouting reports and not being able to, throw a good scout out there, that it was the grad assistants starting that up. And I like how Bruiser Flint took the podium and he said, we have, I think, two keys to this game. So we have to out-rebound them, we have to shut them down from the three-point line, and we have to knock down free throws. All three of those things came to fruition in the first matchup. And it's, again, Kentucky out-rebounded them, knocked down the free throws when Tennessee could not, and shut them down from the three-point line. So another excellent scout and excellent game plan on Kentucky's end.
I think it's just a good matchup for Kentucky too. Like Tennessee's not a team that can get out and run. They don't really have guys that can do that. The one guy that can is Kai Ziegler, and he is no match for Cason. Cason had his number the entire night, or afternoon, I should say. Even was posting him up a couple times. 2
for 10 for Ziegler today.
There you go. So, and he's a guy that missed all those layups in the first matchup, and he had a couple of bad shots this time around too. So, and then if you even go, to the front court where they've had the Euros guy, but he can only do so much. And when he's 2 feet around the basket, he's good. But when Oscar's guarding him in foul trouble, that's kind of the only reason that can happen. So, I think Kentucky just matches up against him. And, Vescovi had a moment where I think he had 15 points in like 8 minutes to start that second half. But my biggest takeaway, I think, is when Tennessee went on that 7-0 run to start the second quarter or second half, and Kentucky, we've seen instances where maybe that would have tanked them, and that would be the end of the game right there. But the fact that they found a way to kind of just grind it out and get through the game and make enough free throws. Tennessee's physicality obviously doesn't pay off when the opposing team is shooting 35 free throws. Like, it can only go so far at that point. So overall, I think that was the best first half we've seen from Kentucky this season. And the second half wasn't as good, but they did enough to get the win, and that's really all we're looking for at this point.
Couple notes from halftime. One, John Calipari didn't know the score. He said that twice after the game. I find that hard to believe, but that's how dialed in he was. He said he didn't even know Kentucky was up by whatever it was. I think it was
20.
Yeah, 20 even there at the half. But then more importantly, for all us guys that remember it, not these two because they're children, but Stephen behind the camera and I, the 98, 97, 96 teams were introduced. The 96 team, my all-time favorite, the beautiful Meadowlands logo after beating Syracuse in that game. Some of those guys were out here. Then the following year, they go runner-up. They were here. And then we had Tubby Smith and members of the 98 team. A great introduction for all of those guys. The ones who couldn't be here, obviously a lot of players from that era coaching right now in college basketball, sending video messages. So really cool to see those guys honored finally on a 25-year reunion. And then Kentucky finished the job and got the win. So really just an overall great day here in Lexington, Jack.
I was missing one thing. Where was the Rick Pitino video? That was the
Yeah,
one thing I was like, man, this is the perfect opportunity. It's a huge game. You have all of the people celebrating. You had Mark Pope even in the video celebration talking about how much he appreciated Rick Pitino and the impact that he made. So I thought it was going to lead up to the perfect thing because he was talking about Rick and said that, you know, the impact that he had on those teams and just the culture of Kentucky basketball. I was like, oh, we're about to get it, the return of Rick Pitino. And then the screen went black and said, you know, go Cats or whatever. And I was like, no, we got so close. So that was the one thing I was missing, but great to see all the history in town and also the future of Kentucky basketball. Justin Edwards and Reed Shepherd both in attendance. Justin got introduced at midcourt, and, you know, we got to see that with Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd, and DJ Wagner in previous games. So it was cool to see Justin get his moment. So a little bit of the past and a little bit of UK future greatness.
We also saw Emmanuel Quickly. He was the Y on break from the Knicks for the All-Star break, sat right behind the bench in a great seat. And for football, Wandell Robinson was wandering around. So a big star-studded event here in Lexington. Next, they head to Florida with Castleton out. You've got to like Kentucky's chances in that one. This one really helped the resume. Who wants to go on the record with Severe Wheeler and C.J. Frederick? Any guesses? Do we know anything? Who knows? Who's got the scoop?
Do they play the rest of the season? Is that what you're asking?
Let's focus on Florida first. Game at a time. We got to win stack days.
I think
they've got
their five right now. You want to have them back, but Kentucky's starting five right now is rolling probably the best they've been all season. So
I do think they need to add them just for depth purposes. It's been amazing they've been able to win these two games, especially in Starkville where Wallace went 1 for 13. But it's asking so much of Reeves and Wallace to play nearly 40 minutes. You're going to get down to Nashville playing consecutive games, then the tournament, your tour weekend after that. So hopefully, I don't know when it'll be, but you can't keep this up without having two of your best guards available.
Look for CJ to return a week from today. Against Auburn at home, and I'm still told that Xavier is expected to play. I know there's a lot of rumors and scuttlebutt and such going on right now, but the expectation still is that Xavier Wheeler, I don't know when his exact timeline is, but the expectation is that he does return. So fingers crossed. And no for certain about CJ. Xavier's a little bit more up in the air, but I still expect both of them to play before the regular season closes out. Even
if they're not at Florida, as we said, with Castleton out, Kentucky should have a significant edge there. But for now, we're going to close the book on Kentucky beating Tennessee. I don't think anyone saw the whooping that the Vols got today. Again, that's the first two-game sweep of Tennessee since 2012. And we all know how that season ended, so let's just go win another national championship. For Drew, Jack, and Zach, this is the KSR Rapid Reaction from Rupp Arena. Somebody say sweep. It's a sweep of the Vols. Always a great Saturday in Lexington when we beat the Vols. And right now I need you to celebrate by commenting and subscribing to the KSR YouTube channel. We're almost to 18,000. So if you hate Tennessee like we do, help us get to 18,000 and go Cats.